Hello, everyone. My name is David Popalisky, and I want to welcome you to the Maurer Theater. Wow, it's been a long time since we've been in the theater together, and that's really special. Everyone involved with the water project is extremely grateful for you being here tonight. We've all experienced many challenges, losses, and also witnessed kindness and heroism. So being together is special. Over 3 years ago, when I first invited some colleagues to collaborate with me on a project to create a performance about water, water issues were already significant and prominent. And yet now, every week, we hear a consequential story about either too much water or too little water. Recently, my wife on her way to work called me and said, "Go outside." Okay, why? It's misting. It was a moment not to be missed, but celebrated. Water is central to our lives. So let's enjoy the show, and if you would like, afterwards, there will be a short talk back to meet the performers and hear about some local water action items. Also, please do share your thoughts using the QR code on the back of your program. And then for safety, I ask you to please keep your mask on during the entire show. And please look to your right and left and find the nearest exit sign. And you all know what to do with your phones. And in case you don't, just stick it in a glass of water and that'll take care of it. Enjoy the show.
That from which is everything that exists, and from which it first becomes, and into which it is rendered at last, its substance remaining under it, but transforming in qualities, that they say is the element and principle of things that are. For it is necessary that there be some nature, either one or more than one, from which become the other things of the object being saved. This type of philosophy says that it is water. That from which is everything that exists, and from which it first becomes, and into which it is rendered at last. That from which is everything that exists, and from which it first becomes, and into which it is rendered at last. Its substance remaining under it, but transforming in qualities, that they say is the element and principle of things that are. Its substance remaining under it, but transforming in qualities, that they say is the element and principle of things that are. For it is necessary that there be some nature, either one or more than one, from which become the other things of the object being saved. This type of philosophy says that it is water. which is everything that exists, and from which it first becomes, and into which it is rendered at last, its substance remaining under it, but transforming in qualities, that they say is the element and principle of things that are. For it is necessary that there be some nature, either one or more than one, from which become the other things of the object being saved. Tasteless, transparent, colorless. If someone described you that way, you would not be happy. It rushes and it trickles, it spills and it leaks, it bubbles and it flows, it splashes and washes, it floods and it recedes. We see it in the ocean, we see it in the tub, and we first encounter it in the womb. It makes up 95% of a cucumber and 95% of a jellyfish. It is over 50% of you and 50% of me. It is 71% of the surface of our earth. It is liquid, it is solid, it is gas. It has no calories. In the beginning, it was created by God. Every living thing came from it, says the Quran. It is one of the 5 great elements of Hindu meditation. It is essential to every known form of life. It is life. Hello, my name is Anne Yumi Kobori, and I'd like to welcome you to the Water Project. The creators of the Water Project know we need to have a conversation about water, a serious conversation. Thank you for being part of that conversation tonight.
Regardless of gender, race, sexual orientation, political party, how much money we make, or what our preferred social media platform is, we are all dependent on water, every one of us. And we have been since time began. And so, we have always had a complicated relationship with water. From the Tigris to the Euphrates, from the Yangtze to the Yellow, from the Mississippi to the Missouri, to the Nile, to the Seine, to the Amazon, to the Sacramento, human beings have been drawn to water. And from these massive and powerful rivers, great civilizations have been born and sustained. Controlling the flow of water means controlling the flow of life. In fact, it could be said that the history of civilization is inseparable from the history of plumbing. One historian said, just about every civilization that we look back on in antiquity that we admire for its contributions to art and literature, science and technology, were also highly developed plumbers. The Babylonians in the 6th century BCE had a king's palace with separate bathrooms and an elaborate drainage system. The Egyptians invented copper pipes. The aqueducts of the Romans carried millions of gallons of water from 50 miles away. In the Middle Ages, when plumbing infrastructures crumbled, the lack of clean water contributed to the Black Plague, killing 1/3 of the population of Europe. To improve personal hygiene, the people of the Renaissance carried water into their homes by hand, the first step towards indoor plumbing. Later, Queen Elizabeth took a royal bath once a month, whether she needed to or not. Near the end of her reign, her godson invented the flush toilet, and the rest is history. Water is also an important source of power. The Persians, as early as the 4th century BCE, had water wheels, as did China's Han Dynasty 100 years later. Other Chinese dynasties used primitive water pumps to help irrigate crops. Engineers in the Islamic Golden Age harnessed hydropower for early industrial mills. Hydraulics helped power the Industrial Revolution in England. In the 19th century, the US led the way in the development of the water engine, or turbine. Today, the 5 largest power stations in the world are powered by hydroelectricity. Beyond plumbing and power, water also means transportation. Water has always brought explorers to their destinations, cargo to its merchants, and travelers to their termini, everywhere across the globe. And water has also carried armadas into battle and people into slavery. Like I've said, our relationship to water is complicated. Water, water everywhere, and not a drop to drink. Who knows where that's from? Any guesses? Shout it out. It is the Rime of the Ancient Mariner, which is a poem by Samuel Taylor Coleridge. He wrote those words long ago, but he was looking today square in the face. Just ask the people of Flint, Michigan. They had their drinking water contaminated for many years, disproportionately affecting African American communities. After a few years of local government ignoring the problem or covering up the problem, then incompetently trying to address the problem, they finally fixed the problem. Now, Flint's water is actually drinkable, but people are afraid to drink it. Public trust has eroded as badly as the lead pipes they put up with for years. Yes, water can be plentiful and scarce at the same time. Water can also just be plain scarce. In 2018, in Cape Town, South Africa, after 3 years of not enough rainfall, this city of 4 million people was set to run out of water. They even knew the date the water would be gone, April 12th, 2018. Day 0, they called it. 90 days before, a countdown clock began. This countdown was in newspapers, on social media, even electronic freeway signs as part of a huge public awareness campaign. People shared water-saving tips on social media, in person, even going door to door. There were competitions to see who could wash their shirts the least. Wealthier areas even adopted tried-and-true water-saving methods they learned from poorer townships. And in those critical 90 days, people came together. They became aware, they made sacrifices, and they averted disaster. The countdown stopped, but awareness continues to this day. Closer to home, we are now in the midst of a mega drought. If you haven't heard that word before, you'd better get used to it. A megadrought is when a region experiences extremely dry conditions for decades. There may be a wet year here or there, but overall dryness maintains a long-term grip. So, we are now in our second decade of a mega drought. And with the many droughts we've all been living through, haven't our attitudes toward rainy weather changed? How many of us keep an eye on rainfall totals or reservoir levels, or instead of complaining about the rain, say, well, we need the water? You know, this was before my time, but do you remember when the Silicon Valley was the Santa Clara Valley? Yes, we live in an incredibly rich and fertile area of the world. Back in the 1800s, way back before Facebook and Google, people started to figure out just how prosperous agriculture could be here. But of course, to succeed, they needed, say it with me, water. In 1892, about 100 new wells were drilled in the valley. By 1920, not even 30 years later, there were over 1,700 wells drilled each year. And wouldn't you know it, all that water being pumped out of the ground was more than nature could replace. In 1920, the Santa Clara Valley Water Conservation Project was born. After 8 months of research and study, and at a cost of $25,000, they published a report. March 1921. It is shown that the growth of the orchard industry is such that in 11 or 12 years, all of the remaining available land will have been planted. The present development of the valley is such that 2/3 of the maximum demand for water has been reached, and the maximum demand will probably be reached by the end of the next decade. One committee member said, if the water level continues to fall for the next 10 years as rapidly as the past 10, thousands of acres of orchards will die for lack of water, resulting in a tremendous loss in values. That cannot be allowed to happen. Water is precious, and water is limited. In the Santa Clara Valley 100 years ago, too many wells. The ancient Chinese text of Proverbs, the I Ching, understood. It says, we think of how a town may be changed, while its wells undergo no change.
This underground water supply should be considered partly as a vast reservoir underlying the entire valley. And partly as a very slowly and irregularly moving body of water. Underground water, like any surface stream, always flows downhill, although the rate of such flow is exceedingly slow. As long as stream flow is maintained, water will continue to percolate from the stream beds to the underground water bodies.
Not running out of water on this planet. planet has a huge amount of water in the oceans. The problem is not that we're running out of water, but that we're running out of water in the places where we need it. We're extracting that water a lot faster than could be replaced.
For every 1 foot of water withdrawn, the water plane will be lowered about 9 feet. For every 1 foot of water withdrawn, the water plane will be lowered about 9 feet. For every 1 foot of water about 9 feet, the water plane will be lowered about 9 feet.
We're extracting that water a lot faster than could be replaced.
The natural forward movement of underground water has been sharply arrested by excessive withdrawals. The permanent drop in the water plane then commenced for the perfectly clear reason that the demand of the wells began to exceed their supply. The natural forward movement of underground water has been sharply arrested by excessive withdrawals. The permanent drop in the water plane then commenced for the perfectly clear reason that the demand of the wells began to exceed their supply. Clear reason that the demand of the wells began to exceed their supply.
Water is precious and water is limited. Water is precious and water is limited. Water is precious and water is limited.
Water is precious and water is limited. And we all use a lot of water. How much water do you think we use every day? Just doing normal things like washing the dishes, doing laundry, flushing the toilet. How many gallons?
50 gallons per person per day.
Wow, that is scarily accurate. I didn't even have to get more guesses. Most people on average use 60 gallons of water a day at least. How many of us here enjoy a nice glass of wine? I know I do. Did you know that 1 glass of wine is 34 gallons of water? 34 gallons of water to produce 1 glass of wine, and it's about the same for a cup of coffee, by the way. How much to produce an egg? You know, housing, feeding the chicken. 52 gallons. How about a hamburger with lettuce, tomato, a bun? 660 gallons. You get the idea. Since we're at a university, how about a lecture? Don't worry, it'll be fun. Alexander Hamilton, Alexander Hamilton. The Water Project presents not Alexander Hamilton, but Aaron Burr. I know, it's not as catchy. Late 18th century New York City, a series of calamities. The city is freaking out and desperate to get clean water. One man forms the Manhattan Company, promises a clean water supply, and steers the city into an exclusive contract. Who is the man in the room where it happens? Alexander Hamilton's dueling partner, Aaron Burr. Not throwing away his shot, Burr had insisted on a clause in the contract where he could use any excess money to start a bank. This did not sit well with the man whose bank had a monopoly in New York at the time. Yes, musical legend Alexander Hamilton. While the Manhattan Company proved to be good at banking, they were pretty bad at fixing New York's water problems. So, people took matters into their own hands for their water supply. Finally, after a few more citywide calamities, the city gave up on the Manhattan Company and created the Croton Aqueduct for safe and clean water distribution. As for Burr's Manhattan Company, it got out of the water business and became a full-time bank that you may recognize. And while Aaron Burr's bank is still around, and he did win the duel, he did a crappy job at water, and he didn't get a Broadway musical named after him. Meanwhile, a little closer to home. No, I said closer to home. Welcome to the quiet hills of Felton, California. For years, they paid a bit more for their water, living in a more isolated area, but life was good. But in 2005, their water management changed hands. Hi, I'm Cal Am, and here's your new water bill. It's only a 74% hike for the next 3 years. Have a nice day. What's that? You have a broken water main? Please hold while we transfer you to our parent company. Hello, this is American Water. Please hold while we transfer you to our parent company. Hello, this is Thames Water of London. Please hold while we transfer you to our parent company. Guten Tag, this is RWE of Germany. Please hold. Meanwhile, back in Felton, the Feltonians started to look for a way out, especially when their neighbors in nearby towns were paying 40% less for much better service. The citizens of Felton formed FLOW, a grassroots organization that went from door to door to encourage local voters to purchase the water system from Cal Am. It worked. Finally, in 2008, the Feltonians took back control of their water supply. Now it's cheaper and better than before. Yay! Yay! And they are the proud owners of their own water system. Here's one more story for you. For that, we now go to the picturesque and woodsy East Coast town of Fryeburg, Maine. Uh-oh, those trucks are owned by Poland Springs, a longtime Maine drinking water company. Well, that's what they want you to think. Up until a few months ago, Poland Springs was actually owned by the Nestle Corporation. When I think of Nestle, I used to think of chocolate, but now I know better. Nestle is the biggest seller of bottled water in the world. This small town of Fryeburg got stuck in a contract with Nestle for up to 45 years, where Nestle pumped 320,000 gallons a day for 1/10 of 1 penny per gallon. Then Nestle turned around and charged up to $8 per gallon to consumers across the US, including residents of Fryeburg. And this story is not unique to Fryeburg or to Nestle. Similar stories are playing out across the globe. But it's worth it, right? It tastes so good. And look at that beautiful label with the gorgeous waterfall and beautiful mountains. So natural looking, it's gotta be good. From time to time, we have all refreshed ourselves with bottled water from beautiful, peaceful, and pure mountain sources. But do we really know where that water comes from?
Floodwaters.
Water.
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 Rain. Waters. Waters.
Water.
Rain.
Water.
Water.
Waters. Waters. Rain.
Water.
Water.
Waters. Floodwaters. Rain.
Flooding.
Floodwaters. Floodwaters.
Flooding.
Rain.
Water.
Floods.
Floodwaters. Waters.
Flooding.
Heavy rain.
The wall of water. Floods.
Floodwaters.
Floods in India.
Floodwaters. Heavy rain.
Water.
Floods in India.
Floods. The wall of water.
Floodwaters continue to rise. Heavy rain.
Floods in India.
More heavy rain.
Floods.
Floodwaters continue to rise. Submerging cars continue to rise.
Floods in India.
More heavy rain.
Water.
Floods.
Floodwaters
Death
continue
toll
to
from
rise.
floods in
Submerging
India.
cars continue to rise. Submerging cars declared in the area where more heavy rain.
Floods.
Officials say the death toll from floods in India.
Floodwaters continue to rise. Submerging cars and
Officials say the death toll from floods in India, Bangladesh, and Nepal.
declared in the area where more heavy rain could complicate the already continue to rise. Submerging cars and stranding
Died when water.
Floodwaters continue to rise, submerging cars and stranding fibers.
Officials say the death toll from floods in India, Bangladesh, and Nepal since the monsoon began has climbed to
Floodwaters continue to rise, submerging cars and stranding fibers.
86-year-old died when water.
Floodwaters continue to rise, submerging cars and stranding drivers.
since the monsoon began has climbed to over
Floodwaters continue to rise, submerging cars and stranding drivers. Floodwaters continue to rise, submerging cars and stranding drivers. Some rivers could reach record levels in the next few days, prompting several rural counties between Austin and Houston to call for evacuation. Hundreds of residents have drivers. Some rivers could reach record levels in the next few days,
86-year-old woman died when
several
water
rural
rushed
counties
through
between
her.
Austin and Houston to call for evacuation. Hundreds of residents have been forced from their homes.
death toll from floods in
Floodwaters
India,
continue to rise, submerging cars and stranding drivers. Some rivers could reach record levels in the next few days, prompting several rural counties between Austin and Houston to call for evacuation. Hundreds of residents have been forced from their homes to reach record levels in the next few days, prompting several rural counties between Austin and Houston to call for evacuation. Hundreds of residents have been forced from their homes.
86-year-old died when water rushed through
Prompting
her.
several rural counties between Austin and Houston to call for evacuation. Hundreds of residents have been forced from their homes.
death toll from
Prompting
floods
several
in
rural
India,
counties between Austin and Houston to call for evacuation. Hundreds of residents have been forced from their homes. Prompting several rural counties between Austin and
86-year-old died when water rushed through her.
hundreds of residents have been forced from their
death toll from floods in India.
prompting several rural counties between Austin and Houston to call for evacuation. Evacuation has been
An 86-year-old woman died when water rushed
Death toll from floods in
evacuation. Hundreds of residents have been forced from their
has
homes.
climbed to over 100.
An 86-year-old woman died when water
Death toll from floods climbed to over 1,200.
A woman died when water
Died. Devastating.
Death toll.
Destruction. Destroying.
Died.
1,200.
Floods, flooding, flooded. This isn't what could happen. This is happening. Right now, as I'm talking to you. Science is not fake news or alternate facts. Scientists do agree. Science is real. 2021, 1 month ago. 45 people in the Northeast are killed from the flooding and devastation caused by Hurricane Ida. 2018. Heavy rains lead to flooding in parts of California burned by wildfires. 23 people killed. 2017. Hurricane Harvey causes severe flooding in the Houston area. 68 deaths. 2012. Superstorm Sandy. 40 people die from drowning on the East Coast. 2005. Katrina hits New Orleans and other cities on the Gulf Coast. 1,836 fatalities, most of them from flooding. And the water shall never again become a flood to destroy all flesh. September 2020 in California was the hottest September on record. Did you know that the 7 hottest Septembers occurred during the last 7 years? And it's not just California. The year 2020 tied 2016 as the hottest year ever in the history of the planet. All the data's not yet in for 2021, but it'll be more of the same. On July 4th, 2019, it was 90 degrees in Anchorage, Alaska. Ice sheets in Alaska, Antarctica, and Greenland are melting. They are shrinking as much as 3 miles a year. On top of that, the oceans absorb 90% of Earth's increased heat. Because water expands as it absorbs heat, sea levels rise to dangerous levels. In fact, hotter water is changing the whole ecosystem of the oceans, causing more floods and more droughts. Science is real. You know, we actually have enough water on the planet, we just don't have it in the places where we need it. Throughout the world, 1.8 billion people do not have access to clean, safe water. In fact, 85% of the world's population lives in the driest half of the planet. On average, women in Africa and Asia must walk over 3.5 miles to collect water. Half of the schools in the world do not have access to clean water or adequate sanitation. And before COVID, half of the world's hospital beds were occupied by someone with a water-related illness. Science is real. In California, 75% of the available water is in the northern third of the state, while 80% of the demand for water is in the southern 2/3 of the state. The Bay Area imports most of its water from the Hetch Hetchy Aqueduct. By the way, the Hetch Hetchy Valley's name is derived from a Miwok people's word meaning edible grass. When the aqueduct was built, that did away with the Miwok's edible grass and other food sources. As I said earlier, California is in the midst of a mega drought. In fact, 2021 is fast becoming the driest year across the West in a millennium. Water is precious and water is limited. So what can we do about it? Well, we have to start small, but we have to think big. We can begin by reducing our water footprint. While it takes almost 2,000 gallons of water to produce just 1 pound of meat, and 500 gallons to produce 1 pound of poultry, it takes only 100 gallons to produce 1 pound of vegetables. And did you know it takes 700 gallons of water to make just 1 cotton shirt? That's enough water for 1 person to drink in 2.5 years. So before you throw out your old clothes, maybe think about repairing them or redesigning them. Or if we have to get rid of them, maybe we can donate them to friends or to family or to charity. And when we buy new clothes, we can choose sustainable brands. In other words, no Water Project t-shirts for sale tonight. And what about washing our clothes? On average, we do about 400 loads of laundry a year, consuming 15,800 gallons of water per household. And I bet most of us use tumble dryers. Too much energy there. How about a clothesline? Remember those? Each of us can make changes, really very simple changes to our everyday lives, and if we all do this, we can have a great and lasting impact on the amount of water we consume, or don't consume. Remember, water is precious and water is limited. But what happens if we don't make those changes? Well, take a second to think about a memory that you have of water. Maybe something from your childhood, or maybe something from last week. Maybe one of your favorite vacation spots is next to water. Go ahead, just think of one memory related to water. Feels good, doesn't it? Memories of water are a part of who we are. If we don't make changes and don't advocate for sustainable water policies at the highest levels, what will happen to those memories? Will we ever be able to make more? Will our children have the same opportunities to make their own precious memories of water? I remember, every year since I was a year old, I would visit Pajaro Dunes Beach in Watsonville. My family would play in the surf, we would build sand castles, and we would make a fort and plant our family flag. And it brought us closer together.
Water is something that connects to us spiritually.
Every time I am in water, I am reminded of the comfort and the dedication that my mother would give in bathing me as a child. And so it brings happiness and peace more than anything.
On these rafting trips, we would just have so much fun in the water. We would play, we would pour water on each other, and it was just really fun and easy.
Growing up, hearing the rain on the rooftop was always calming and soothing, kind of lulling me back to sleep. And still, hearing the rain on the skylight where I live now, it just wakes you up in the middle of the night, and it's a thought, oh, it's raining. And then it just slowly brings you back to sleep.
When I'm feeling out of sorts and actually just lost, that I go to the beach, and it just being near the waves and in the water somehow grounds me in a way that I'm not able to get to in other environments.
When I'm at the ocean, what I see in the waves is power and also a sense of the unknown.
And the flooding in Iowa is the entire Missouri River that's overflowing, and there's that concept of it can't evaporate fast enough. It keeps falling and it can't escape.
I remember being young, 10, 11, 12, and being at the beach and feeling the undertow for the first time, and just feeling like the water, but it felt like a hand grabbing my ankle and pulling me back. And it was a moment of terror. I mean, I didn't expect it. It was fun at the beach until it wasn't. I'll never forget that sort of unseen hand of the ocean grabbing my leg and pulling me back.
I would just be driving along the one and pop down and jump into the ocean and come out and have that clarity, and whether it was in the ocean or in the river or just the act of drinking water itself to hydrate yourself and your body really gives that clarity.
I think about those canyons that have been carved over eons by just the sheer determination of water to run downhill.
One experience was being under a river's waterfall. It wasn't that big, but I could feel the force of the water pushing against my body and resisting it, and almost having this tug of war with water. And it was just so exhilarating and just splashed around you that it just made you feel so alive, made me feel so energized.
Anytime I go hiking, I like to end at a body of water. As a creature made mostly of water, I like to know there's water there. I like to find it.
Thank you to the San Francisco Bay Area Chamber Choir.